Good afternoon, dear listeners. I'm very happy that you joined my webinar. From the list of the listeners, I see that a lot of people I know. It's a pleasure for me that you join. So today, during the webinar, I'd like to give you some understanding of our threat intel in the Asia-Pacific region about the groups and their industry targets. What techniques do they use? But honestly, it's not about specifics of these techniques, but about the idea behind it. So this is our threat intel results and some investigation results, and I'm a representative of I'm a head of investigation department in Group IB. So I give you this picture of a threat landscape in the region, and I hope you find it useful how to configure your security now and in future using this information. And our next webinars will be about some specifics of these techniques of different groups that can give you more details for your security strategy. So let's start. Some words about Group IB. If you are new for us, so Group IB is a Singaporean-based company with a big experience in investigation of computer crimes. We are not just a security vendor. Yes, of course, we have security solutions, but most of them are based on our knowledge how hackers behave, how do they think, and how exactly they try to circumvent security measures. Since we're monitoring dark web and we are investigating computer crimes, and I am personally contacted with a lot of cyber criminals during search and seizure procedures and during our investigations in the darknet. So I know that their thoughts are concentrated on the idea how to obfuscate the malware, to circumvent antivirus and IDS protection, how to change their communication channels for their tools to be silent for any security measures. And I know that they reconstruct their infrastructure for particularly every month if they work permanently, and they try to tailor the infrastructure for the new target. That means that usually you can't be proactively ready for such targeting attacks, and I will be more focused on APT threats today. Since we are concentrated on combating cyber crimes, we are official partners of Europol and Interpol, and we have our mutual investigations. While we do other industries, we are also involved in the investigations in the financial area, as well as different services like incident response and compromise assessment, where we have a quite strong expertise in this area. That is why we are recommended by SWIFT and OSCA. Some of our products, like Secure Bank and Threat Intelligence, were mentioned recommended by Gartner of its quality and usefulness for the industry as a security measure. But today, I will focus on the groups that are concentrated their attention and their interest in the APAC region. On this slide, you can see more than 20 groups. Most of them are from China, North Korea, Russia, and Iran. Some of them are not attributed yet. They are in this list because they had attacks in this region or had current interest in the countries in the APAC region. Here you see the industries that they are interested in. Several of them are more focused on really disruption and harm to the society, like outage of the cities and countries and destroying the infrastructure of the cities and regions. So this is the first type of threat actors, and most of them are government sponsored. The next is those that are interested in sensitive information in the military and government side, and that is why their actions inside the organizations are very silent, and they are searching for sensitive information for years. For this reason, they can't use something that could be detected by security analysts and security measures. The next thing is technological espionage. And here you see a lot of China threat actors are here because they try to steal secrets of different organizations in aerospace area, IT, construction, engineering, video games, social media, pharmacies, shipping, chemicals. So these are a lot of targets. And those China and Iran are very interested in such type of information. The next interesting thing is educational, hotels, healthcare, and other areas. And here, government-sponsored hackers are concentrated on the information about some famous people, maybe diplomats or government people of the competitors' countries. Some of them are interested in, of course, are interested in financial profit. I mean, they gather information in such publicly available places to steal bank cards or personal data. One other thing that is quite interesting also is telecom, and some of the groups use telecom companies as an entry point to other industries because everybody uses a cellular network, for example. And less groups you see in financial area. And just recently we published a report about Lazarus. It's a Russian-speaking group. We know a lot about them, and you can read our recent report about them on our site. The interesting group here is TRIP, which is attributed to China, and they showed their interest and they hacked companies in the satellite communication sector. So that purpose could be disruption, the purpose could be surveillance. But this is something like a new trend of government-sponsored hackers, because they try to monitor this area, this industry, to gather information for espionage or for disruption. Previously, most of them were conducted surveillance in energetic sector or government-based companies. So as for delivery stages, honestly, there is not something new in this area. So the trends of the previous years, but since it's still actual, we have to concentrate on it very carefully. So the first one is something like vulnerable servers or devices that are accessed via the internet. That means that such groups can find your vulnerabilities in your web servers and try to intrude inside your network. It's obvious thing, but usually security solutions and correct configuration can help to prevent these attacks, because they usually use automatic techniques for such attacks. So it's popular. It was popular several years ago. It's still popular, but it could be very easily prevented. The next thing is more complicated. It's the spreading via third parties. That means that you have some partners, you have companies that provide you some services, you have your ISP provider, and we in our practice have several cases when such companies was used as an entry point. So it's a famous supply chain attack, but the more interesting that most of them are trust parties. And since they have some vulnerable parts, they can be used as an entry point to your organization. The good example here is recently in 2018, an Iranian group, which is called Hexane, and it's more focused on Middle East, but also has some attacks in the Central Asia. And they are interested in oil and gas companies, but as an entry point, they used telecom companies. So they hacked telecom companies as an entry point for these industrial control systems, because for them it's easier first to collect sensitive data to telecom companies, and secondly, use it as an entry point. This is a good example for such thing. Another thing is you have some software providers, and of course, if it is compromised, and via the new updates, you can get a malicious code. It's very difficult to control such situation, and you have to be prepared that if threat actor has a goal to be inside your network, they will be. So the next stage is to be aware of it inside your organization. And now the focus of security is switched from external security to internal. And the goal of my presentation is give you an overview how this task can be solved. The next example of delivery stage is spear phishing. You know, it's quite popular. Most of groups, especially those who attacked USA during the election period, using spear phishing emails. Yeah. So this is a usual tactic. It works very good. They use a little bit social engineering to prepare emails. The good example here, just a new group. Blue Mushroom is not very famous now, and they are more concentrated on research and government and military companies of China. But even those, they are new. Even they use spear phishing as a very good instrument to deliver their payload inside the organization. Other groups, including financially motivated hackers, use these techniques for a long period of time and evolve new tactics, how to be silent while they're passing their emails through mail servers. The next thing is watering hole attacks, also quite popular, and such group as Ocean Lotus, you know them, they're attributed to Vietnam in one of their latest attacks on Cambodia. They tried to compromise Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Foreign Affairs and several Vietnamese newspapers. So they used watering hole attack as the technique to deliver their payload inside the infrastructure of the target organization. That means that they hacked some popular site that are usually visited by the employees of such organizations, and they have a wide list of IP addresses of the organizations from the point of their interest, and they infect only their computers. So if I'm from Russian organization, visit this site, I won't be infected. And the last thing is quite new today. You know, Lazarus group. They are attributed to North Korea, and they have a wide interest in different areas. They started to use in their recent attacks in financial sphere. They started to use social engineering technique in social networks to attract attention of employees inside banks, for example, and communicating with them to intend them download their malicious code. So this is a new technique that will be, I'm sure that will be used by other groups, and you have to be ready that your employees directly can be involved in scheme of delivering malicious code inside your network. So the idea is that different groups from different regions, government-sponsored, financially motivated, all their goal is to intrude to your network. That means if you are a target, they will be in your network. The next question is, can you prevent the real damage or not? And can you stop them at the beginning of their activity in your network? Since we are starting to speak about social engineering and new techniques, I will give you some examples of Lazarus attacks that were performed in the Chile banks recently. As you know, Lazarus is quite famous by its financial, government, and media attacks. So they started quite a long period of time. So in 2014, as I remember, they're quite famous of their Sony Pictures leakage in their Bangladesh heist, where they tried to steal more than $1 billion, but they failed to do it because of the mistake. They invented some new techniques and they moved their, recently our threat intelligence team identified their new tools that are now written on PowerShell. So they trying to rewrite their previous Reconnaissance and backdoor tools in PowerShell. They're quite new, they are light, they are easier to modify, and they are less recognizable. They have a tool that supports for macOS, and they started to attack cryptocurrency, and just the recent news from the previous months was their attacks in the cryptocurrency area. So on this slide, you see there are different tools that are quite famous and some new. According to their region specifics, they try to attack in financial area. They try to attack banks and steal money via SWIFT, ATMs. For ATMs, they have quite a new technique, but we will discuss it maybe in some other webinar. If you compare it with the APAC region, so you see, this is the timeline of their attacks in different regions, and most of them are in the APAC region. So they are concentrated, they maybe not concentrated, but a lot of them are in our region. And that is why they give something like a trend of attacks and techniques in this area. That means you have to be aware about such types of threats. As for the Lazarus tools, this is an evolution of its techniques, and everything before 2018 is quite popular, quite famous. The recent ones like PowerShell Red and PowerTask that are written in PowerShell are quite new, and we are identified them in December of 2019 and just recently in May. So they have similarities with the previous tool, but they're quite improved. They are more about reconnaissance. They are more about surveillance. They have functionality to monitor the activity, to record video, etc., etc. So there's more for espionage, not for financially motivation. And as you see in the previous slide, they have different departments. So they have Blue North and Andriel in different security companies. These departments of Lazarus are identified, and usually Blue North is responsible for financial crimes. Lazarus is responsible for media, and Andriel is responsible for disruption. So Lazarus for espionage, and Andriel for disruption. So these new tools that we just recently invented could be detected by PowerShell activity first, and of course by some behavioral analysis. But we will more focused on these tools in our latest webinars. I want to speak about new techniques that they used for delivering their payload, like social engineering. And this is one of the examples that we, it's not a confirmed attack, but we recently found in one of the card shops that is called Joker Stage. It's quite popular, quite famous. We found that it was a big upload of bank cards from Pakistan at October of 2018. And then in 1 month, again, much higher, much bigger number of cards was leaked again, published on the Joker Stash, again from Pakistan. If you see on the timeline at the end of the slide, from Pakistan, it's not a usual situation that somebody upload such cards. So we started to investigate it, and nobody confirmed that Pakistan Bank was attacked. So you see that in the period of time, again, a new wave of cards was published. Before it, there was nothing, and during 1-2 months, they published big amount of information from the Pakistan Bank, including in the second wave, including PIN codes that give us an idea that maybe some bank in Pakistan was attacked by Lazarus, and they infect ATMs to steal this information. we started to find information about this and found that in October 2018, from Pakistan via web form, the malware was uploaded to the VirusTotal. That means that it wasn't done by security companies. It was done just by web interface that supposed that it is a user, and the similar sample was uploaded from Chile at the same period of time. It has different hashes, but the functionality and the code is very similar. It was the file that is called application PDF, and it is attributed to Lazarus. It is contains its PowerShell backdoor. And what is more interesting, this application PDF is delivered via these social engineering techniques. When guys from Lazarus find some employee of the bank in the LinkedIn, and they started to communicate with them and suggest some work and ask for the interview, maybe some communication and later conversation, and later then send via Messenger application PDF as a form that has to be filled out with the personal information. But this form is exe file that is called application PDF. This is exact a backdoor of Lazarus. So by these techniques, they try to circumvent the security measures that are installed inside their organizations, because such messengers like Skype user is not controlled, and they just send a malicious file to the computer of a victim that of course can have antivirus on it. But since all these group are interested in visibility in the network, so all of them are quite obfuscated and sometimes are encrypted. So there is no signature in antivirus software for such a new malicious code. That is why any security solution that is installed inside the organization will be silent, first because of the way of the delivery, and the second because malicious code is quite protected from such identification. So this is a new technique that was shown by Lazarus in the Chile case when this case was confirmed, and we suppose that the same was in Pakistan because the sample of the similar tool was uploaded from Pakistan, and we've seen waves of uploading bank cards dumps in the Joker stash. So probably Pakistan bank was also compromised by the same technique by Lazarus Group. So you see that it's starting to be a new wave, and to protect from it, you have to guarantee that all your employees are aware of all cyber threats. But of course, it's impossible even if they are quite educated and you every time conducting trainings with them. It's just a human fault. It could be inattention in this. Exactly in this period, and of course hackers use social engineering to do it. That means, so the main idea is that they deliver it, and the work of fighting with hackers starts not on the perimeter but inside. So now you have to have infrastructure that is very controlled by your security department, administration department, administrator departments, IT departments that can see any violation of behavior, and security measures are used as an instrument to this, not a universal solution that if antivirus is installed or you put intrusion detection system or you have a sandbox and you now are 100% or less secure. Of course not. So in the strategy of cybersecurity for your organization, you have to keep in mind that now you are hacked. What can you do with it? How can you find it? How can you react on it? And this is a strategy today to switch the focus of the security to the paradigm that now you are hacked, and the idea is to find hacker inside. There, inside the organizations, threat actors, especially government-sponsored, are very silent because they use living off the land techniques. It's not a trend of this year; it's a trend of from previous years, but it's still quite popular. They use PSExec, PowerShell, and other tools that can be used by your system administrators and security staff. That is why every new attack, every new cyber attack is more difficult to attribute to any of group, because all of them now use the same techniques and frameworks. For example, several groups use Metasploit as their and its tools to their attacks. Of course, a little bit modified, but again, it's Metasploit. And some of them use Cobalt Strike, and some of them use recently Taj Mahal APT framework was identified, that is quite new. So because it's even it was used from 2013, it was identified only recently in spring this year. So it's a new for us, for security specialists, it's the new APT framework that is used by threat actors, and of course maybe not only one threat actor groups. Taj Mahal was identified as an instrument of Iranian group who are focused on the Middle East, but it's not a guarantee that some other groups also don't use this APT framework. What else can help hackers to be invisible in network? Anyway, guys, are you following me? If you have some problems with, and if you have questions, you can just write it in chat, and we will very quickly solve any connection problem or answer your questions. So another techniques which help threat actors to be invisible in the network is customized malware. In my recent incident response, I just see that they are even compiled in the organizations and for the organization. That means that you won't find these samples anywhere in the previous attacks of the same group, and that is why the provider of your security solution will not have any behavior pattern or signature pattern for their security solution. So customized malware compiled exactly for the target organization. Maybe it's not a trend, but it is quite often, we quite often faced with the situation during incident response. And again, it's makes difficult attribution first and detection of these tools. So the next thing is fileless persistence. They try to not to create files inside the file system. Not a new trend, but quite popular, still quite popular. For example, they can use a VBA script in the registry as a persistent mechanism. So the code is inside the registry, and it has some auto start mechanism and mapped to the memory just after the new restart. And inside the file system, there is no file that could be identified by the antivirus. Several groups, including Lazarus, rewriting their instruments in PowerShell for both backdoors and lateral movement. So PowerShell is quite a popular instrument during lateral movement for spreading and infecting and compromising new stations inside the organization, and also to guarantee a back connect to the threat actor. And several groups, as I mentioned, Ocean, Lotus, and Lazarus, invented macOS-based malware. So the idea that if you have Mac, you are secure is now, honestly, it wasn't the truth from the beginning, but because there are Apple-based iOS and macOS-based botnets. There is malware for Apple devices. There are groups who are concentrated on attacking of macOS infrastructure. Yep, they are not quite huge, but this is quite a new trend. So usually government-sponsored groups are interested in creating such Apple-supported tools because top management and people who could be their point of interest can use such devices. So they have to have such tools in their arsenal. And I want to say that when you are looking in the internet for threat actors, you will see plenty of APT groups. Several groups have different names. So the same group have different names because security specialists created, every security specialist tries to name the group with their own name. That is why sometimes there is misunderstanding of what particular group is now in the attack. And also because of all these techniques, it's difficult to attribute a new attack to a recently famous group because there is a big overlapping of their techniques, and there is sometimes it's not there is lack of understanding what exact tools this group use or this group use. In the recent news, you can see that Schaeffer has overlapped infrastructure with oil rig, and maybe this is the names of the group. Maybe it is the same group. In the attack in the Bangladesh banks that it was in May, in media, it was attributed to Lazarus. But at the same moment, Group IB had monitored the Silence infrastructure. Silence is another financial motivated threat actor. And we see the connection from the Bangladesh bank infrastructure to the Silence server. So we are pretty sure that for this haste, Silence was responsible. That means sometimes it could be a mistake of attribution because it's quite difficult. It's really difficult. That is why you see new groups. For new attack, you can see a new group invented, and you can see different opinions of different security firms in the question of attribution. Since I since I want to give you an idea that everybody can intrude inside the organization, I can give you one simple example how they can prepare spear phishing email that will pass every security checking inside the organization. I mean, in mail servers, in proxy, and in firewalls. Just imagine if you are a hacker and you want to intrude inside Group IB. You know that Group IB domain is Group IB.com, and if you want to compromise Group IB, for example, you can create a domain that is quite similar to Group IB. You see, the first letter is changed. So this could be a real domain, and of course, when you are looking through a lot of emails, you won't see a difference between Group IB and Group IB.com, and you can send to me email from impersonating my CEO with some urgent request and with the attachment. So when I have a big number of emails in my inbox, I won't pay attention to such simple things. To conduct this attack, you can host a new IP address in the bulletproof server that is not in the blacklist of any security measure. That means that every of them will be silent. SPF and DKIM checking will be passed because you have a real domain correlated with IP address. There was no any modification during the transferring this email from their mail server to my mail server. That means all these security measures will be successfully passed. And since I got email, they use some social engineering techniques to prepare this email. I will be maybe a little bit nervous when I have email from the CEO, and he asked me to look at the attachment and give him a response frequently, urgently. But in the attachment could be backdoor, but now you know that it could be obfuscated, etc., etc. So no security solution will be alert me. But you have to think of the idea that even if you have IDS and IPS system, they can be honestly easily circumvented by threat actors by using of covered channels, encryption, and such techniques to circumvent any signature on your network sensors. So that means that at this stage, they will be silent also. Endpoint solution will be silent, security network level solutions will be silent. So the next stage for them is to make a reconnaissance, and they have time for it. But this is your game, because they are inside your network. Of course, you can't guarantee that they will be prevented from passing your perimeter. You can't guarantee it. But when they are inside your network, they don't know anything about it, but you know everything. And you have to know everything about it. And you have to have a control of every segment inside your organization. In some cases, we have linear network. That means that from infected computer to the critical infrastructure, there was a direct way. When I compromise one station, in several steps, they have access to the critical infrastructure, so no any border. If you have a segmented network, for them it's hard. For them it's more difficult. If you have access control, a real difference between different accounts. For example, this service responsible for backup has these privileges, and that can be applied on different servers. This server, which is mail server, has its own account with its own privileges that can be applied on the main controller, etc., etc. So when they have restricted access to one station inside the organization, the next step is to find vulnerable stations, and usually they find it because in big organizations it's difficult to be up to date every time with all software that you use. They will find it and they will use the vulnerabilities. If not, they will use Insider to install it with escalated privileges, no problem. So I want to skip this phase and start with the idea that they are inside the network. So they will find some vulnerable point. Then they escalate the privileges, then they have local administrator. In a period of time, usually they will find a server where they can get domain administrator. After that, they have a full control over the network, and after that you can't stop it usually. So if you identify them at the moment when they have full control, usually they can prevent any surveillance from any monitoring from your party. They can disable CIM, they can steal information, they can change and create a new account. So this moment is the end. When they have full control, you can't stop them, and usually you can't identify them. But before they don't have a control, you can find them, and usually it's in a simple networks. It's 2 days. It was in my experience. In quite complicated networks, it's 1 month, 2 months when they really find the way to the sensitive data or to the money. It depends on their goals. So you have 1 month to stop them. It's really a lot of time to find them and to identify all their techniques and to eradicate them from the network. So the game is yours when they're inside the network. And when they reach their goal, they can steal data and destroy infrastructure and steal money. And I can give you one example. In my recent response in the APAC region, it was quite a big bank. It was full of security solutions. Really, they spent a lot of money for security, and they have all of them. So they have EDRs, they have antivirus, they have IPS, they have firewall, they have sandbox, so everything. But threat actors who were government sponsored, they were inside the network for 1 year, and they exfiltrated all necessary for them data for this period of time, and they were silent, and nobody can identify them during this period. So this is 1 year is quite a lot to find a bad guy inside your network, even if they use living of the land techniques. So this is your network. You know how everything's worked. You know how to configure it. You know how to reconfigure it. So the idea is, yes, you can build a fence around your critical infrastructure, but usually when they reach critical infrastructure, they have valid credentials to every account that is responsible for Swift, for example, or any account that is responsible for industrial control system, or what else, or any critical area in your network. That means that yes, you can control this, but they usually have a way how to circumvent it, because they know your vulnerable parts that are used. And you can prevent this thing if you constantly attack yourself. So the idea behind this is to use threat hunting and compromise assessment and red teaming constantly, and knowledge of threat intelligence, of course. And you will imitate the incidents every day, and maybe not every day, but permanently. And you will reconfigure your security solutions that are just an instruments in your hands to be aware of any violation inside the network. It's really difficult. It's really difficult to be aligned with the techniques of the hackers. That is mean that today you imitate this group, tomorrow you imitate this group, but you have also threat hunters who can find any sign of popular techniques that are very scrutinally described in the internet and by threat intelligence service providers. So you have to try to find them constantly, and this is the only way how to be secure. Not just finding, but also to train the team to identify new techniques by red teaming. So these guys will use cutting edge techniques, imitate incident, and train your incident response team how to work. You can remember the Netflix example. So they use chaos monkeys to disable their servers and to check the resilience of their infrastructures. So this is the way they use to be stable, because this is their goal. But for your purpose, you can check and hack and try to steal sensitive information every day and see whether your security solutions and your staff able to see it. Because if you detect the incident after the damage is done to your network, it's a bad situation. So that means that your security stuff doesn't work and your security solutions doesn't work. If you can detect it before the damage, you have a period of time, and for you it's better than you can identify it as earlier as you can, because you have more time for response, and even you can prevent damage. So the idea is not to prevent intrusion, but to be able to identify a threat actor inside the network before he has a full control. And of course, after that, your incident response team will find every compromised station, every technique, every hidden persistent mechanism, and eradicate guys from the network. From our side, Group IB can assist in any step of the incident handling process. So we have our 24/7 CERT that can react to any incident. We provide threat intelligence for your team, which can be used for red teaming and blue team. We can provide compromised assessment to check the infrastructure, whether it is now compromised or not. But of course, one checking is okay, but tomorrow you can be compromised, and you have to do it constantly. We can provide our solution, I will explain it later, that can give you several borders of protection. After the incident occurs, Group IB are ready to provide incident response service, and afterwards, any investigation works like digital forensics and reverse engineering of malware, and even identifying threat actors, because we are very passionate about our work, and we're trying to not just attribute the attack, but in cases where we can, we're trying to identify hackers themselves, and are ready to help in collaboration with law enforcement to bring guys to justice. This is the only way how we can really stop the cybercrime. As for the endpoints security solutions, the idea is several borders of security. It's not, of course, only the Group IB idea, but the same could be implemented by any security solution. But we are quite strong in the way of analysis it, and from the perspective of chronology and response. So what I'm talking about is our solution that is called Handbox. This is a threat detection system that contains 3 modules. It is network traffic analyzer, it is a sandbox, and it is EDR. So if the hacker passed sensor, and let's imagine it passed sandbox, but usually it's quite difficult, we have EDR that will find that, look at this picture, that some document was delivered in archive in the Thunderbird. Now I'm in the left of this slide. So Thunderbird is a mail agent that opened attachment in the email, and this document, unless Winward launched PowerShell and command line, and then created several files that could be potential. So creating exe files in temp directories and launching a PowerShell is not a typical situation for a document that you receive. So this is a picture that can be done by our solution by correlating events from sensor, from sandbox, and from EDR. And you can use our EDR for incident response and for threat hunting. In one click, you can see every station inside the organization that launched PowerShell with some arguments, or you can see what computers do have the file that have a name with some regular expression, or you can find, because the EDR collects all information from the station, like logs, registry key, memories, launched processes, created files, etc., and just store it before there is really a limit of unusual behavioral events when they alert. And then the handbox, which is brains of all these 3 modules, will reconstruct all the chronology, and you will see that this was a remote connection on this is the result of our sandbox, and this is the result of the timeline of the event in the station. And when you have one alert in your web panel, you will see the whole chronology in one click, and you can very easily prevent spreading of the threat actor during the whole your infrastructure. It's ideal situation to stop it on the first station, but for example, if the reaction is not very quick from the security staff, you will find with the same EDR during its reconnaissance stages. So this behavior during lateral movement and escalating the privileges and trying to hijack the sessions will be detected, and you will see it. It will help you to prevent before they have full control. So this is the work of Group IB as to fighting with cybercrime in 2 ways. The first is creating cybersecurity solutions that help security staff to combat with them. The second is to help by our SOC team to support all these events and to guarantee that every security alert is processed correctly. And the third is to help you in incident response and investigation perspective to find out who are guys behind the attack. Thank you for your attention. I'm ready to answer your questions. And as I see, we have several of them. So the first question is, what software do you use to track activity of this hacking group? So I mentioned several of them from our security stack of Group IB, but during the incident response, we are using our own scripts to identify. If you don't have EDR, we're using our own scripts to collect information of launching processes and different auto start mechanisms and unusual places where threat actors usually save their files or try to use unusual folders or keys in the registry. So we're trying to collect all information from all the stations and process it. So this the way how we do it during the incident response to find out any hidden security mechanism. The next question is, what is this word? ATMs? ATMs, yes. Many ATMs requires to install software whitelisting tools. Why attackers to ATMs are still popular? I can explain why. So the first idea that not all of them have whitelisting, but it's out of the question. If they have really whitelisting, remember that they have a full control. Remember that they have enough privileges to reconfigure everything they want. So the first idea, they can change the policy of whitelisting if they can. The next, they can send and they can alter the update for the ATMs with the vector, and they will successfully upload it. The third thing, in some cases, they just a little bit changing the main executable file itself. And if it doesn't check the integrity, it will be, because it's quite difficult usually, it will be successfully launching with additional thread, which is malicious. Because ATMs are not attacked. Now, it was popular in 2014-15 when ATMs were attacked directly when guys came to the ATM, open it, and install the software. Yeah, it was this. But when they have a full control over the network of the bank and they have valid credentials for the server responsible for supporting ATMs, they can do anything usually. In the old cases, I'm not sure that they are actual now. It's quite old, but it's just curious. They sent to the ATM configuration with changing the cassette nominal. That means that previously the first cassette was responsible for $100 and the fourth cassette was responsible for $1,000. But now they changed the nominal, and when they tried to cash out 400 Singapore dollars, for example, they will get 4,000. So they just change the configuration of the software itself that gives them more money. Do we have other questions? No? So you have here our contacts. My email is matveeva.groupib.com. You can send me any email with a question, clarification, or any support. And if we have one new question. The question is about threat actors interested in Singapore. Honestly, there are less threat groups, and they are first that I mentioned is Silence. It's a financially motivated group. The next is Whitefly. Attribution is not done yet, but they are quite famous with Sync Health leakage. You know it. The next is Lazarus, and as I remember, there is one more. I forgot the name. Sorry. Yeah, So that's all. I'm open to your questions. Thank you for your attention. I hope it could be useful. If you need some other clarification according to techniques, I mean details, because it was a little bit high level, I'm open to answer you, to clarify anything. So thank you, and join our next webinars also. Goodbye.